The first snowflake of December fell against my kitchen window like a whispered promise, melting instantly against the warm glass as I watched my 8-year-old son Tommy race across our backyard. His red winter coat flapped behind him like wings, and his breath formed small clouds in the crisp morning air. The scent of cinnamon and nutmeg drifted from the oven where my wife Sarah's famous sugar cookies were baking, filling our home with the unmistakable warmth of Christmas approaching. Tommy had been acting strangely for weeks now, ever since Thanksgiving dinner when his grandfather had told us stories about Christmas miracles and the power of believing in something bigger than ourselves. I caught him whispering to our golden retriever Max in the corner of the living room, his small hands cupped around the dog's furry ears, as if sharing the most important secret in the world. When I asked him what they were talking about, Tommy's green eyes sparkled with mischief, and he simply said that some things were meant to be surprises. The sound of Tommy's boots stomping on our front porch brought me back to the present moment. The wooden floorboards creaked under his weight as he burst through the front door, carrying the sharp scent of winter air and pine needles on his clothes. His cheeks were flushed pink from the cold, and tiny ice crystals clung to his dark brown hair like nature's own glitter. "Dad, can you help me with something really important?" Tommy asked, his voice carrying that particular tone children use when they're trying to sound more grown-up than they actually are. He unzipped his coat with fumbling fingers, still stiff from the cold, and hung it carefully on the wooden hook by the door that was almost too high for him to reach. "Of course, buddy. What do you need?" I set down my steaming mug of coffee, the ceramic making a soft clink against the granite countertop. The rich aroma of the dark roast mingled with the cookie scent, creating a symphony of comfort that seemed to define our December mornings. Tommy glanced toward the kitchen where Sarah was humming a Christmas carol while arranging cookies on a cooling rack. The melody of Silent Night floated through the air, her voice soft and melodic like a lullaby. He took my hand with his small, warm fingers and led me toward the living room where our Christmas tree stood in the corner by the bay window. We had picked out the tree together just 3 days earlier at Morrison's tree farm on the outskirts of town. It was a beautiful Douglas fir, nearly 7 feet tall, with perfectly symmetrical branches that seemed to reach out like welcoming arms. The fresh pine scent filled the entire room, mixing with the subtle vanilla fragrance from the candles Sarah kept lit on the mantelpiece. Multicolored lights twinkled like captured stars among the green needles, casting dancing shadows across the cream-colored walls. "I need to put something under the tree," Tommy whispered, his voice barely audible above the gentle crackling of the fireplace. The flames cast a warm orange glow across his young face, highlighting the serious expression in his eyes. "But it's really, really important that nobody finds it until Christmas morning. Can you promise me that, Dad?" The weight of his request settled between us like a shared secret. I knelt down to his eye level, feeling the soft carpet beneath my knees and catching the faint scent of his strawberry shampoo from his morning bath. His expression was so earnest, so filled with the kind of pure intention that only children possess, that I found myself nodding before I even fully understood what I was agreeing to. "I promise, Tommy. Whatever it is, it'll stay safe until Christmas morning." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, carefully folded piece of paper. The edges were slightly worn from handling, and I could see that he had used his best handwriting, the kind he saved for thank-you notes to grandparents and birthday cards. The paper was cream-colored, probably taken from Sarah's good stationery set, and it had been folded with the precise care that children use when something truly matters to them. "This is for Mom," he said, his voice carrying a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "But she can't read it until Christmas morning, okay? It has to be a surprise." I watched as he crawled under the tree, his small body navigating carefully between the lower branches. Pine needles caught in his hair and on his sweater, and I could hear his quiet breathing as he concentrated on finding the perfect hiding spot. The multicolored lights created a magical canopy above him, turning his mission into something that looked like a scene from a fairy tale. He chose a spot near the trunk of the tree, behind a cluster of silver and gold ornaments that Sarah had collected over the years. Each ornament told a story of its own. There was the ceramic angel from our first Christmas as a married couple, the hand-painted snowman that Tommy had made in kindergarten art class, and the delicate glass bell that had belonged to Sarah's grandmother. Tommy carefully wedged the folded note between two lower branches, making sure it was completely hidden from view, but secure enough that it wouldn't fall. "Perfect," he whispered to himself, backing out from under the tree with the satisfied expression of someone who had just completed an important mission. Pine needles stuck to his red sweater, and he had a small smudge of tree sap on his cheek, but his smile was radiant with accomplishment. The days that followed were filled with the beautiful chaos of Christmas preparation. Sarah spent hours in the kitchen, creating batches of fudge that filled our home with the rich scent of chocolate and vanilla. The sound of her mixing bowls and measuring spoons created a rhythmic symphony that had become the soundtrack of our December evenings. Tommy helped her roll out cookie dough, his small hands dusted with flour, leaving tiny fingerprints on everything he touched. I noticed that Tommy kept glancing toward the tree with a secretive smile, especially when Sarah was in the room. During our evening routine of reading Christmas stories by the fireplace, he would curl up between Sarah and me on our worn leather couch, but his attention would frequently drift to the corner where his hidden note waited beneath the twinkling branches. One evening, about a week before Christmas, Sarah caught me staring thoughtfully at the tree while she arranged presents underneath it. The wrapped gifts created a colorful landscape of anticipation: red boxes with gold ribbons, green packages topped with silver bows, and several oddly shaped bundles that could only contain the kind of creative gifts that come from a child's imagination. "You've been looking at that tree like it holds the secrets of the universe," Sarah said, settling down beside me on the couch. Her hair smelled like the vanilla perfume she wore during the holidays, and her fingers were still slightly warm from wrapping the last of Tommy's presents. "What's going through that head of yours?" I wrapped my arm around her shoulders, feeling the soft cashmere of her green sweater against my palm. Through the bay window, I could see the neighborhood houses twinkling with Christmas lights, creating a constellation of holiday joy that stretched as far as the eye could see. The Hendersons across the street had outdone themselves this year with an elaborate display that included animated reindeer and a life-sized Santa Claus that waved mechanically every 30 seconds. "Just thinking about how much Tommy's grown up this year," I said, which was true even though it wasn't the complete truth. "Remember when he used to believe that Christmas magic was just about getting presents? Now he seems more interested in giving them." Sarah smiled, the kind of warm, knowing smile that had made me fall in love with her 12 years earlier. Her blue eyes reflected the firelight, and I could see the contentment that came from being exactly where she belonged. "He's been so secretive lately. Yesterday I caught him wrapping something in his bedroom, and when I offered to help, he practically pushed me out the door. He said it was classified information, and that I'd have to wait for Christmas morning like everyone else." The memory of Tommy's hidden note felt like a warm weight in my chest. I had kept my promise not to tell Sarah about it, but the anticipation of Christmas morning was building inside me like a pressure cooker. Whatever my son had written in that carefully folded piece of paper, it had been important enough for him to orchestrate this elaborate surprise, and I found myself counting down the days with the same excitement I remembered from my own childhood. Christmas Eve arrived with a fresh blanket of snow that transformed our neighborhood into a winter wonderland. The flakes fell steadily throughout the day, muffling the usual sounds of traffic and voices, until the world seemed wrapped in a peaceful silence. Tommy spent the morning building a snowman in our front yard, his laughter ringing out like silver bells every time Max tried to steal the carrot nose before it could be properly installed. That evening, we followed our family tradition of attending the Christmas Eve service at St. Mary's Episcopal Church downtown. The old stone building was decorated with hundreds of white poinsettias and garlands of evergreen that filled the sanctuary with the scent of fresh pine. Candles flickered in every window, and the stained glass windows cast jeweled patterns of light across the wooden pews. Tommy sat between Sarah and me, unusually quiet during the service. I noticed him fidgeting with his hands, and when I looked down, I saw that he had written something on his palm in blue ink. The letters were too small and smudged for me to read, but he kept glancing at his hand throughout the service like he was reminding himself of something important. During the candlelight portion of the service, When the entire congregation held small white candles and sang Silent Night in voices that blended together like a heavenly choir, Tommy leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Dad, do you think Mom will like her surprise?" The warm wax from my candle dripped onto my thumb, but I barely noticed the brief sting. Tommy's question carried so much hope and vulnerability that it made my chest tighten with emotion. I looked down at his upturned face, illuminated by the golden glow of hundreds of candles, and saw the same expression he had worn as a toddler when he would bring me dandelions he had picked from our yard, convinced they were the most beautiful flowers in the world. "I think she's going to love it, buddy. Whatever it is, I know it comes from your heart, and that's what makes any gift special." He nodded solemnly and turned his attention back to the service, but I caught him glancing toward Sarah with a smile that seemed to hold all the magic of Christmas itself. That night, after we had returned home and gone through our Christmas Eve traditions of leaving cookies and milk for Santa and carrots for the reindeer, Tommy had trouble falling asleep. I could hear him tossing and turning in his bedroom, the springs of his mattress creaking softly as he shifted positions. The old house seemed to echo with anticipation, every settled beam and settling floorboard adding to the symphony of a family waiting for Christmas morning. Around midnight, I heard the soft padding of small feet in the hallway. Tommy appeared in our bedroom doorway, silhouetted against the dim glow from the nightlight in the hallway. His hair was tousled from sleep, and he was clutching his favorite stuffed animal, a worn brown bear named Captain Coco that had been his companion since his 2nd birthday. "Dad, I can't sleep," he whispered, his voice small and uncertain in the darkness. "I keep thinking about tomorrow morning." Sarah stirred beside me, her breathing still deep and even with sleep. The digital clock on her nightstand cast a soft red glow that read 12:17 a.m., officially making it Christmas morning, though dawn was still hours away. I slipped quietly out of bed, the hardwood floor cold against my bare feet, and knelt down to Tommy's level. "What's keeping you awake, buddy? Are you excited about your presents?" Tommy shook his head, his green eyes serious in the dim light. "It's not about my presents, Dad. I'm worried about Mom's surprise. What if she doesn't understand what I wrote? What if it doesn't say what I wanted it to say?" The vulnerability in his voice made my heart ache with the kind of parental tenderness that catches you off guard. I reached out and smoothed his messy hair, feeling the silky strands between my fingers. He still smelled like the lavender bubble bath Sarah had given him before bed, mixed with the unique scent that was purely Tommy, a combination of childhood innocence and boundless energy. "Tommy, can you tell me what you wrote in the note? Maybe that would help you feel better about it." He was quiet for a long moment, shifting Captain Coco from one arm to the other while he considered my question. The house around us was completely silent except for the gentle hum of the heating system and the distant sound of wind moving through the bare branches of the oak tree outside his bedroom window. "I wrote about how much I love Mom," he finally whispered. "But not just regular love, Dad. I wrote about how she makes everything better when I'm sad, and how she sings to me when I have bad dreams, and how she always knows exactly what to say when kids at school are mean to me. I wrote about how she makes our house feel like the safest place in the whole world." Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes as I listened to my 8-year-old son articulate feelings that many adults struggle to express. The depth of his love for Sarah, and his desire to find the perfect way to share that love, spoke to something profound about the kind of mother she had become, and the kind of person Tommy was growing up to be. "I also wrote about the day I got scared during that thunderstorm last month," Tommy continued, his voice growing stronger as he shared his thoughts. "Remember how Mom came and sat with me in my room? She didn't just tell me that thunder couldn't hurt me. She explained how thunder was just the sky's way of celebrating the rain, and she helped me count the seconds between the lightning and the thunder so I could tell how far away it was. She made me feel brave instead of just telling me to be brave." I remembered that night clearly. Sarah had spent over an hour in Tommy's room, her voice calm and reassuring as she transformed his fear into curiosity. By the end of their conversation, Tommy had been asking to go outside and watch the storm, fascinated by her explanation of how lightning worked and why thunder sounded the way it did. "That sounds like a beautiful thing to write about, Tommy. Mom is going to treasure that note forever. But there's more, Dad. Tommy shifted closer to me, his small body warm against my side. I wrote about how she always makes my favorite pancakes on Sunday mornings, the ones shaped like Mickey Mouse, even when she's really tired from working late on Friday nights. And how she never gets mad when I track mud through the kitchen, even though I know it makes more work for her. And how she always puts extra marshmallows in my hot chocolate without me even asking. The list of small, everyday kindnesses that Tommy had noticed and remembered painted a picture of Sarah that was so accurate it took my breath away. Children see things that adults often miss, the little gestures of love that happen so naturally they become invisible to everyone except the people who matter most. I think Mom is going to be amazed by everything you noticed about how much she loves you, I said, giving Tommy a gentle hug that smelled like lavender and childhood dreams. Sometimes the most beautiful gifts aren't things you can wrap in pretty paper. Sometimes they're words that come straight from your heart. Tommy nodded, seeming somewhat reassured by our conversation. Dad, can I ask you something else? Of course, buddy. You can ask me anything. Do you think Mom knows how much I love her? Like, really knows it? Sometimes I worry that I don't tell her enough, or that I take too many things for granted. The question hit me with unexpected force. Here was my 8-year-old son grappling with concepts of gratitude and expression that some people spend their entire lives trying to understand. The fact that he was worried about taking his mother's love for granted spoke to a level of emotional maturity that both impressed and humbled me. Tommy, your mom absolutely knows how much you love her. She sees it every time you run to hug her when she comes home from work. She hears it in your voice when you tell her about your day at school. She feels it when you curl up next to her on the couch during movie nights. Love isn't just about the words we say, it's about all the little ways we show care for each other every single day. But the note will make it extra special, right? Like, she'll have something she can keep forever. The note will be incredibly special because you took the time to put your feelings into words. It's like giving her a piece of your heart that she can hold in her hands whenever she wants to remember how much she means to you. Tommy smiled for the first time since entering our bedroom, and I could see some of the tension leaving his small shoulders. Okay, Dad, I think I can sleep now. Will you walk me back to my room? I stood up, my knees creaking slightly from kneeling on the hard floor, and took Tommy's free hand. His fingers were warm and soft, still carrying the innocent trust of childhood. We walked quietly down the hallway, past the family photos that lined the walls, pictures of Tommy's first steps, his first day of kindergarten, family vacations to the beach where his hair was bleached almost white by the sun and salt water. I tucked him back into his bed, pulling the heavy blue comforter up to his chin and making sure Captain Coco was positioned properly for optimal cuddling. The room was filled with the comfortable chaos of childhood building blocks scattered on the carpet, books stacked on his nightstand, and a collection of toy cars arranged in what appeared to be a complex parking system on his desk. Dad, Tommy's voice was already growing heavy with approaching sleep. Yeah, buddy. Thank you for helping me with the note and for keeping it a secret. You're the best dad ever. I kissed his forehead, breathing in the sweet scent of his hair and the unmistakable comfort of being exactly where I belonged. You're pretty amazing yourself, Tommy. Sweet dreams. I made my way back to our bedroom where Sarah was still sleeping peacefully, her blonde hair spread across the pillow like spun gold. The digital clock now read 12:43 a.m., and I realized that in just a few hours, we would all be gathered around the Christmas tree, and Tommy's carefully written note would finally fulfill its purpose. As I settled back into bed, I found myself thinking about the profound gift Tommy was giving to Sarah, and to all of us really. His note wasn't just an expression of love for his mother. It was a testament to the power of paying attention, of noticing the small acts of kindness that make up the fabric of a family's daily life. In a world that often seemed to move too fast for meaningful connection, my 8-year-old son had taken the time to catalog the moments that mattered most. I must have eventually fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew, the bedroom was filled with the pale gray light of dawn, and the sound of excited footsteps was thundering down the hallway. Tommy burst through our bedroom door like a small tornado of Christmas energy, his pajamas wrinkled from sleep, and his hair sticking up in at least 6 different directions. "It's Christmas, it's Christmas. Santa came, there are presents everywhere." His voice carried the pure joy that only Christmas morning can bring, the kind of excitement that seems to vibrate through every fiber of a child's being. Sarah stretched beside me, a sleepy smile spreading across her face as she watched our son bounce from foot to foot with anticipation. Sunlight was beginning to stream through our bedroom window, casting long golden rectangles across the hardwood floor and promising a beautiful Christmas day. "Good morning, sweetie," Sarah said, her voice still husky with sleep. "Did you sleep okay?" "I slept great. Well, mostly great. I woke up once, but Dad helped me go back to sleep. But now it's morning and it's Christmas and we need to go see what Santa brought." Tommy's words tumbled over each other in his eagerness to begin the day's festivities. We made our way to the kitchen first, following our family tradition of having coffee and hot chocolate before opening presents. Sarah started the coffee maker while I helped Tommy prepare his special Christmas morning hot chocolate, complete with extra marshmallows and a candy cane stirrer. The kitchen filled with the rich aroma of brewing coffee and the sweet scent of chocolate, creating the perfect backdrop for Christmas morning. Tommy could barely contain his excitement as we moved toward the living room. He kept running ahead of us and then circling back, like Max did when we took him for walks in the park. The Christmas tree looked even more magical in the morning light, with the colored lights reflecting off the metallic wrapping paper and creating a kaleidoscope of color that seemed to dance across the walls. But as we approached the tree, I noticed something that made my heart skip a beat. There, clearly visible among the wrapped presents, was Tommy's carefully folded note. Somehow during the night, it had worked loose from its hiding place between the branches and had fallen to the floor near the base of the tree, where it lay like a small white flag against the dark green tree skirt. Tommy saw it at the same moment I did. His face went completely pale, and I watched as panic replaced excitement in his green eyes. The note that was supposed to be a perfect surprise for his mother was now sitting in plain sight, threatening to ruin the careful plan he had worked so hard to execute. "Oh no," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the gentle crackling of the fireplace. "It fell out of the tree. Mom's going to see it before she's supposed to. The surprise is ruined." Sarah had moved toward the tree and was beginning to kneel down to retrieve the note, clearly intending to move it out of the way so we could begin opening presents. Time seemed to slow down as I watched the scene unfold, knowing that in just a few seconds, Tommy's carefully planned surprise would be discovered prematurely. "Wait, Sarah," I called out, perhaps a bit too quickly. She paused with her hand halfway to the fallen note, looking up at me with curiosity in her blue eyes. Tommy stood frozen beside me, his hot chocolate growing cold in his small hands as he watched his Christmas surprise teetering on the edge of disaster. "What is it, honey?" Sarah asked, still crouched beside the tree. Morning sunlight streamed through the bay window behind her, creating a halo effect around her blonde hair and making her look almost angelic in her red flannel pajamas. I could feel Tommy's eyes on me, filled with desperate hope that somehow I could salvage his carefully planned surprise. The weight of my promise to him pressed against my chest, and I realized that this moment would define not just Christmas morning, but possibly Tommy's understanding of whether adults could be trusted to keep their word when it really mattered. "I think Tommy has something he wants to tell you first," I said, giving my son what I hoped was an encouraging smile. "Something about a special Christmas surprise he's been working on." Tommy set his hot chocolate down on the coffee table with trembling hands, the ceramic mug making a soft clink against the wooden surface. He walked slowly toward Sarah, his bare feet silent on the carpet, and I could practically see him gathering his courage with each step. "Mom," he began, his voice small but determined. "I wrote you something really special for Christmas, but it was supposed to be a surprise, and now it fell out of the tree, and you're going to see it before I was ready." His words came out in a rush, as if he needed to get them all out before his courage failed him. Sarah's expression immediately softened with understanding. She moved away from the fallen note and opened her arms to Tommy, who gratefully accepted her embrace. I could see her inhaling the sweet scent of his hair, the same way I had done just a few hours earlier when he couldn't sleep. "Oh, sweetheart, would you like to give it to me properly? We can pretend I never saw it on the floor." Tommy pulled back from the hug and looked into her eyes with the serious expression he wore when something was truly important to him. "Mom, this isn't just a regular Christmas present. It's something I've been thinking about for a really long time, and I wanted to make sure I got the words exactly right." "Then I think it deserves to be given exactly the way you planned," Sarah said, her voice gentle and patient. "How were you hoping to surprise me with it?" Tommy's face brightened considerably as he realized that his surprise wasn't completely ruined after all. "I was going to wait until after we opened all the regular presents, and then I was going to tell you that Santa had left one more thing under the tree just for you. Then you would find the note and read it out loud so Dad could hear it too." "That sounds like a perfectly wonderful plan," Sarah said, carefully moving the note back toward the base of the tree where it would be easily discoverable later. "Should we open our other presents first, and then finish with your special surprise?" The relief on Tommy's face was so profound that I felt my own chest loosen with gratitude. Sarah had not only saved his surprise, but had made him feel like his plan was even more special because of the thought he had put into the timing. This was exactly the kind of intuitive parenting that made her so extraordinary, the ability to read a situation and respond in a way that honored our son's feelings while creating an even more meaningful experience. The next hour passed in the beautiful chaos of Christmas morning. Tommy opened his presents with the unbridled enthusiasm that only children can muster, exclaiming over each gift as if it were the most amazing thing he had ever seen. He had asked for a new set of building blocks that could be used to construct elaborate castles and cities, and when he unwrapped the large box, his whoop of joy echoed through the entire house. Sarah opened her gifts from me with the appreciative grace that had made me fall in love with her years ago. I had chosen a delicate silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a tree, symbolizing how our family had grown and flourished together. When she saw it, her eyes filled with tears of happiness, and she immediately asked me to help her put it on. I opened my presents with appropriate enthusiasm, though I found myself distracted by the anticipation of Tommy's note. Sarah had given me a new coffee mug with a photo of the three of us from our summer vacation to the mountains, and Tommy had made me a bookmark in art class, decorated with his handprint, and the words, "World's Best Dad," written in his careful third-grade handwriting. Finally, after all the wrapped presents had been opened, and the living room floor was covered with colorful paper and ribbon, Tommy stood up with theatrical ceremony and walked toward the Christmas tree. "Mom, I think Santa left one more present for you," he announced, his voice carrying just the right note of surprise and excitement. "It's right there by the tree trunk." Sarah played her part perfectly, looking genuinely surprised as she spotted the folded piece of paper among the pine needles and discarded wrapping paper. "Oh my, what could this be?" she asked, carefully picking up the note and examining it. "It has my name on it in very special handwriting." Tommy practically vibrated with excitement as he watched her unfold the paper. I moved closer so I could hear every word, my own heart racing with anticipation for what my son had written during all those secretive moments over the past few weeks. Sarah cleared her throat and began to read aloud, her voice clear and warm in the morning light that filled our living room. "Dear Mom, I wanted to write you a letter to tell you all the reasons why you are the most amazing mom in the whole world." She paused and looked up at Tommy, who was watching her with the intensity of someone witnessing the most important moment of their life. "Tommy, this is already beautiful," she said softly, but he gestured for her to continue reading. "You make me feel safe every single day, not just because you protect me from scary things, but because you help me understand that most scary things aren't really scary once you know more about them. Like when I was afraid of thunderstorms, you didn't just tell me not to be scared. You sat with me and taught me how thunder and lightning work, and you helped me count the seconds so I could tell how far away the storm was. Now when it storms, I think about what you taught me, and I feel brave instead of scared." Sarah's voice caught slightly as she read, and I could see tears beginning to gather in her eyes. Tommy stepped closer to her, reaching out to touch her arm with his small hand. You always know exactly what to say when kids at school are mean to me. You don't just tell me to ignore them or that they're probably jealous. You help me understand that sometimes people say mean things when they're feeling bad about themselves, and you teach me how to be kind to them anyway. You help me be a better person even when other people aren't being their best selves. I felt my own eyes growing misty as I listened to Tommy's words, filtered through Sarah's voice. The sophistication of his observations about human nature and kindness was remarkable for someone his age, but even more remarkable was his recognition of how Sarah had shaped his understanding of empathy and compassion. You make our house feel like the most special place in the world. Every morning when I wake up, I can smell coffee and whatever you're making for breakfast, and I know that no matter what happens during the day, I get to come home to you and Dad and Max and everything that makes me feel happy and loved. Sarah had to pause in her reading to wipe away tears that were now flowing freely down her cheeks. Tommy looked concerned for a moment, until she smiled at him and explained that these were happy tears, the kind that come when your heart feels so full of love that it overflows. You never get mad at me for the little mistakes I make, like when I forget to put my dishes in the dishwasher or when I track mud through the kitchen. You just remind me gently and help me learn to remember better next time. You make me want to be more helpful and responsible because I can see how hard you work to take care of our family. The note continued for several more paragraphs, each one detailing specific moments and memories that Tommy had cataloged over the months. He wrote about Sunday morning pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse, about extra marshmallows in hot chocolate, about bedtime stories that Sarah told with different voices for all the characters. He wrote about how she always remembered to pack his favorite snacks in his school lunch, and how she never failed to ask about his day when he came home from school. But perhaps most touching were the observations about the less obvious ways Sarah showed her love. Tommy had noticed that she always let him choose the movie on family movie nights, even when she clearly would have preferred to watch something else. He had observed that she never complained about reading the same bedtime story multiple times when he was going through a phase of wanting to hear his favorites over and over again. He wrote about how Sarah had helped him learn to ride his bike, running alongside him in the park until her face was flushed red with exertion, never once suggesting that they take a break even though he could tell she was getting tired. He remembered how patient she had been when he was learning to tie his shoes, sitting with him at the kitchen table every morning for weeks until he finally mastered the complicated loops and pulls that had seemed impossible at first. The thing I love most about you, Mom, Sarah read, her voice now thick with emotion, is that you see the best parts of me even when I can't see them myself. When I feel sad or frustrated or angry, you help me understand that those feelings are normal and okay, but you also help me remember all the good things about myself that I forget when I'm upset. You make me feel like I can do anything and be anything, and you love me exactly as I am right now, while also helping me grow into the person I want to become. The living room had grown completely quiet except for Sarah's voice and the gentle crackling of the fireplace. Even Max seemed to sense the importance of the moment, lying quietly by the hearth with his golden head resting on his paws, his dark eyes moving between the three of us as if he understood that something significant was happening. Thank you for being the kind of mom who makes every day feel like an adventure, even the regular days when nothing special happens. Thank you for teaching me that love isn't just a feeling, it's all the things we do to take care of each other. Thank you for showing me what it means to be kind and patient and strong. I hope when I grow up, I can love my children the same way you love me. Sarah finished reading and carefully folded the note, holding it against her chest as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. Tears were streaming down her face, but her smile was radiant with joy and love, and overwhelming gratitude for the gift her son had given her. Tommy stood uncertainly for a moment, clearly moved by his mother's emotional response, but unsure if he should be worried about making her cry. Sarah opened her arms and he flew into them, both of them holding each other tightly while I watched from a few feet away, my own heart so full of love for both of them that I could barely breathe. "Tommy, that is the most beautiful gift anyone has ever given me," Sarah whispered into his hair. "I'm going to keep this note forever and ever, and whenever I need to remember how blessed I am, I'll take it out and read it again." "Really? You're not just saying that to be nice?" "Really, truly. This note shows me that you've been paying attention to all the little ways we love each other as a family, and that's the most precious thing in the world. You've given me something that no amount of money could ever buy." As I watched my wife and son embrace in the golden morning light, surrounded by the detritus of Christmas morning and the warm glow of our tree, I realized that Tommy had given all of us a gift that went far beyond the words on that piece of paper. He had reminded us to notice the everyday miracles of family life, to pay attention to the small acts of love that we might otherwise take for granted.